Man, has it been 31 days since I've posted a video? I don't know. You tell me. Welcome back, everybody. My name's Rachel, and this is my book club. I don't know. It was like having a knife stabbed into my liver and twisted, and I sobbed. Oh my God. Now, I did a lot more driving this month because I went to go see my family in Minnesota every weekend for my sister's birthdays and Mother's Day and this big family lunch that we did. So I did finish 2 audiobooks also, so you'll see those in my rankings too. Now, I'm going to be going through these books in order of least favorite to most favorite for this month. Now, I know it's been a long time since I've posted a video, and I'm very sorry, but if you are new here, welcome. I did break 100 subscribers, which I know is a really small number, but I'm super amped about it because normally I just show up to my little studio here at Kaylin's house and I record a video at 1 in the morning and I just ramble on for an hour or 2 and then I cut out all the stupid stuff and then I post it. So I'm really happy that just anyone is interested in what I have to say. So thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to, or like or comment on this video. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. So my least favorite book that I read this month was The Rip by Holly Craig. So that is a thriller book. That was one of the audiobooks that I listened to. Something for me with audiobooks is I like to listen to them, you know, in the car while I'm doing laundry. Audiobooks just feel very non-committal for me, so I'm a lot more open to trying books that I wouldn't normally read when I can listen to them on Audible, just because it feels like less of a commitment. The Rip is one of the ones that I decided I wanted to try. It is a thriller following this like super rich, you know, perfect family, and they go on their vacation to this super exclusive island off the coast of Australia, ? And they spend this time on this island only for things to start going wrong. A child goes missing and we start to see the cracks and flaws behind this very perfect family, as well as seeing points of view from Eloise, who is a secondary main character, and watching the story unfold from her point of view also, as well as the main mother of the child who goes missing, Penny. The idea of this book was really intriguing, and I have been trying to get more into thrillers recently, and this book was all right. I think I gave it maybe 3 stars, but I might settle more on 2. It was really fun to read, and one thing I really like about thrillers is that the narrators can often be really misleading, or you have a lot of these kind of more like twisted points of view that you're getting, and I really like that. I like diving into these like unstable characters, and so that was fun to read from Penny and Eloise as the narrators of the story. They were very fun to kind of watch them unravel as this stuff was happening, but at the end of the day, the book didn't really resolve very well for me. Like, we had all this buildup and we had all these instances of seeing Penny kind of lose herself and of Eloise really leaning into her more like immoral side kind of, and it starts to get really intense, especially psychologically for the 2 main women, but it doesn't really get all the way there. It's kind of like Holly Craig kind of teases like how intense and how crazy the story could have been, but then it kind of just resolves itself. I don't know. I just found the ending not very satisfying for the potential that the book had, but I was still intrigued until the very end and then was just kind of disappointed at the ending. So I gave it 2 stars because it was all right, but it wasn't really everything I would have liked. Next up, I don't know what I'm gonna say. There's a lot to say about what I'm about to show you, but we'll get there, I guess. So the next book on my list is Siege and Storm, which is book 2 in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. And if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I already posted a video about Six of Crows. I read Six of Crows first. I was absolutely obsessed with that duology. I still think it is one of the best YA series ever. I love it, it's perfect, and I love Leigh Bardugo. I think that series is amazing. And Shadow and Bone is the series that she released. This was before Six of Crows. And you can tell in a lot of ways that this series was earlier on in her career. It's still a really good series. It's very entertaining, but you can tell it's not nearly as well written as Six of Crows. Like, she definitely grew as a writer between Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. And don't get me wrong, like, I still really loved this. These books, like, being the YA series that they are really easy to read and they're still entertaining. I will talk more about this series because the other book in that trilogy is also on this list. But I will say that I'm gonna be doing a video on the full trilogy compared to the show at some point, which I really like the show too, so I'm excited about that. But of all 3 books in the trilogy, this one was my least favorite. Only because some things in this book just kind of seem to happen for the sake of conflict and not necessarily for the long-term effects of the story. And there was definitely some things that were really important. And then there's some other things like the romance between Alina and Mal, and then Alina and Nikolai. I do love Nikolai, he's sick. But I just have a lot of critiques. There was a lot of things that made me feel kind of cringy and icky, and I think it just dipped into that cringy YA fantasy a little hard in this book, and that's why it's my least favorite. I was still entertained. Again, it was a really easy read, so it wasn't like painful for me to get to the end or anything, but I did feel just, I don't know. It just did not hit right for me, but we'll talk about the rest of the series later. Next, book 3 for me of this month was Children of Dune. Dune is epic. I love this series. This series is just really iconic as far as sci-fi goes, so it's hard to go too wrong. My opinion on this is that the first book so far is still the best of this series, and I've heard from a lot of people that the first Dune book is the best for the whole 6-book series. The second book was very mediocre for me, very meh. Like, kind of similar to the last one. It just didn't really hit the spot for me, and it didn't build up in ways that I would have liked. But I think this is a great book to redeem the things that I was disappointed by in the second book. Between Leto and Ganima, I think there was a lot of potential there for Ganima that was not played out well, and Leto's story is kind of going in a direction that I feel very mediocre about. And so all in all, I really enjoyed this book. I think it brought a lot of things to life and a lot of ideas that could be thought out and played out in very exciting ways for the next book. So I'm super excited to read the next one. But all in all, I would say this is kind of middle ground for me for what I read this month. Not the most exciting, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited for what's next. So there's that. Easy peasy. Next, Ruin and Rising. This is making it more towards the top for books I read this month. Now, this is where I'm going to talk a little bit more of this trilogy as a whole. So the thing that I realized that I really like about this trilogy is it just hits that nostalgic spot for me. Like, if I had read this when I was like 16, like middle school, high school, anywhere in that age range, I would have been like unhealthily obsessed with this series. I think if I had read this at like just the right time, like for the age group that this is definitely targeted towards, I would have been beyond obsessed. And don't get me wrong, it's good, but it has a lot of those like telltale YA flaws where it's kind of corny, and our main character, Alina, is like, she's kind of a blank slate. Like, she's definitely meant to be that kind of female main character that you as a insecure 16-year-old girl can really project yourself on, right? She is a reluctant chosen one. Every man who is attractive in all of the universe wants to marry her because she's so cool and so powerful, right? You have the Darkling who like wants her, and Prince Nikolai who wants to marry her, not only because she's the Sun Summoner and it would be a good alliance, but also because she's just so unique. And Mal is her best friend from home, and he's obsessed with her, and he can't get over her and forge his own path to save his life. There is a lot of things that, as an adult reading it, definitely make your eyes roll a little bit. However, as you should all know by now, I am an easy to please lady. I do not require much to enjoy a book, and this still hit all the marks for like little romantic feelings, and there was some good action still, and we were able to resolve all of our main plot points, and we had a very cute ending that I really enjoyed. And so all in all, I really like this book. I think this wrapped up the trilogy really nicely and was able to kind of fizzle out some of the things I was questioning after book 2. I really cannot wait for the video where I talk about this and the show as well, because the show is so good. I really like it so far, but we shall see. Next up on my list, I read romance. I know. I know. I really wanted to get back into romance because I keep seeing all these releases for Emily Henry books and Abby Jimenez books and all these romance books. People are like, you have to read it. It's so wonderful and so cute. It makes you kick your feet up in the air, blah, 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 blah. So I'm trying, okay? For you. I tried to get back into romance. And the first romance book that I read this month was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. And this is another one I did as an audiobook because I was feeling non-committal about it. The last romance book I read, I really did not like. It just was just not good for me. It just was a waste of time, in my opinion. And it wasn't even horrible, but it was just not good. And so I decided that if I was gonna read another romance, I should just do it and give it a shot as an audiobook and see how it went. And it went great. I really like how Emily Henry writes her characters very real and flawed, and how they love each other, but there is like these things that Poppy and Alex both need to work on and improve on in order for their relationship to work, but they're willing to make it work, and they are so cute together and they're so compatible. It is so fun to read two characters who are so compatible. Being able to write chemistry between two people like that was very, very fun and very like heartwarming to experience, and I really, really liked it. Like I am on the train for the hype of Emily Henry. I thought that I just didn't like romance, but I was just not reading the right romance. I gave that one 4 stars. I thought that book was great, and I'm really happy that I decided to go with that as my entrance back into romance. If you like romance and you haven't read Emily Henry, first of all, I don't actually think that's a thing, but if you haven't, you should. All right, up next, and I think this book might be tied with People We Meet on Vacation, I haven't really decided for sure yet, is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Okay, so romance. I thought I would like this one, so I bought it. And I did. This book, I really can't decide if I like it more or less than People We Meet on Vacation. The style of writing and the way this romance is written is pretty different from Emily Henry, and so I like it for a lot of different ways. This book is a lot more kind of fairy tale, like contemporary fairy tale romance, which is really fun. I never actually thought I would like something like this, but I did. And so if you see, it's kind of a take on, it's a little bit of a Cinderella story is what it's meant to be, right? We're following Daniel and Alexis. Daniel is the classic, you know, super hot carpenter, small town guy who's really perfect at everything he does because he's really cool and super amazing. But Alexis can't be with him because she is a doctor in a very prestigious hospital emergency room, and she has a whole future of medicine that she has promised to fulfill, and all her friends are snobs and they wouldn't like her. Also, she has stuff going on with her ex, which is really trashy and sad and all this stuff, and he lives 2 hours away, so it's not like their relationship can work anyway. I think romance books are always a little bit predictable, but I think that's part of the allure. I think that's one of the reasons that you like them and why they feel so comforting, is there is always a small aspect of predictability. Like, the whole point of reading a romance book is that you get to the happy ending, right? At least in my opinion. Like, I would never read a romance if it didn't have a happy ending. It would get 0 stars instantly. So there is that aspect of romance, right? However, there was a lot of problems in Alexis's life that she felt like were important enough reasons that she couldn't be with Daniel that I actually really resonated with, or that I saw how very real they are. Because a lot of the times in romance books, it'll be things like, oh, maybe you should just learn to talk to each other and it wouldn't be a problem. Maybe you should just learn to communicate. Maybe you should just get over that weird side fling you had and then just be with the person that you love. Sometimes the conflicts that arise in romance books are so trivial that they lose a lot of their entertainment value. And in this book, I was very pleasantly surprised that I never thought that. Like, there was a lot of actually genuinely big issues that would be very difficult to overcome in a relationship, between the long distance between them, between their different career paths and their different social lives and different schedules and all this stuff. Like, it made a lot of sense for their relationship to not work out. But that is the whole point, is that their relationship isn't supposed to work out, but they can still have that fairy tale ending. And it's very cute. It is very, very cute. And Daniel is like the ultimate golden retriever boyfriend, and it is just so sweet. And I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed reading the ending, even though, like, as you're getting towards the ending and you can start to see where their happy ending is coming from, you're like, oh yeah, but it still really hits you and is really heartwarming, and it was really good. And something else that's cool for those of you who care is that this author, she's from Minnesota, which, that's cool. I'm from Minnesota. And so she writes about these places in Minnesota and that she gets these cupcakes from Nadia Cakes. And this author, she owns Nadia Cakes, which is an actual bakery in Minneapolis. She owns this bakery and writes these books set in Minneapolis. And like, she gets to like plug her own bakery in her books. I don't know. I think that's really cool. This lady is like living everyone's dream. She's an author and owns a cupcake shop. Like, what else could you possibly want? So that's just a side note. I'm gonna read more of her books, like, solely because she has to be the coolest lady ever. Lastly, for my favorite book of the month is Dark Age by Pierce Brown. Now, if you haven't read, so this is the 5th book in this series. So if you have not read the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown, this is your sign that you should get into it. I started this series like 6 years ago or something. I stopped reading for a really long time, so I never got caught up. Not the point. Red Rising is a legendary sci-fi series. If you have not read this series, you should read it. Normally, when it comes to sci-fi and fantasy, I kind of give a caveat that, oh, if you really don't like sci-fi, obviously it's not for you, whatever. But I actually think, like, even if you don't like sci-fi, this series could convince you. This is such an impressive book. So overall, for all the books I've read of the series, the first 3 are all really incredible. It's been a long time since I've read them, so I don't know if I could pick a favorite of the first original trilogy, but all of it is really amazing. And then the 4th book for me was good. It was lacking in a couple things, but it was still really, really good. But this book is the best. This is the best book in the series so far. Reading these books, they're pretty serious sci-fi books, right? They're pretty legit, very heavy topics, very gory, very rated R, very rated M for mature audiences. I like to think that this has the same level of violence and just general, like, vulgar content as Game of Thrones, but as sci-fi. And so if you're okay with that, then this is so good. The action in every book is written so amazingly well, and this one in particular made me sob. I have never, because this book is so, it's very serious and it's very masculine, and for that reason, I usually don't get very emotional, like, between the way it's written by Pierce Brown and the way that I react to that. I would normally never cry at a book like this or at a sci-fi series that's set up the way this one is. However, there is a passage that I think if I read it right now, I would tear up. I actually am getting choked up just thinking about it. This book was so good. Let me see if I can give you a better idea. I'm just babbling and I'm not actually saying any significant words. And so in the series, if you've read any of this, by the time we get here, we have, I think, like 4 or 5 points of view that we're mostly following. And the thing is by the time you get here, those 4 or 5 characters that you're following are all very, very important to you. And you have learned to support each character. Oh God, how do I explain this? Each character obviously has their own agenda. You have Darrow, who is still fighting to keep his dream alive, as well as Mustang, who's in another part of the galaxy trying to uphold the actual government and planets on her shoulders. And then we get introduced to these other side characters who we thought up until this point in the first 4 books were the bad guys, right? You're like, oh, these people are horrible, and I can't believe that they wouldn't let Darrow live his dream of making everyone equal. But then you kind of start to see that like they have goals that they want to reach, they just look different. And so now you have this internal conflict as a reader. Like I could see myself supporting either side of the situation depending on how it goes, right? Depending on how the characters continue to grow and change. And then you have all this buildup of these characters, right? 2 characters that you love are now going head to head because they are on different sides of this war. And then you just get punched in the gut at the end. I cried so hard. It was like having a knife stabbed into my liver and twisted, and I sobbed. Oh my God. I will never recover. I am forever changed. Every book in this series is 5 stars, except for maybe Iron Gold. I gave that one 4 stars, but this series is so good, and I can't explain it without explaining 4 books of previous context to you, so just take my word for it. This series is so great, and I am so hyped to read the next one. And this was the best book that I read this month. It had great action, it had amazing characters and amazing character development, and it had such an intense conflict. Okay, I'm sorry, I promise I'm almost done talking about this book. Pierce Brown is a sci-fi genius. If you've watched Game of Thrones, there's that one episode where everyone dies. Actually, there's like 2 episodes like that. There's 2 episodes where like they just decide to kill everyone. Right? And it's like the worst thing that's ever happened to you ever. You know what I mean? That feeling. I experienced that reading this book. So good. So again, including audiobooks, I read 7 books this month. Here they are. Da-da-da! Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble about these books. I really went into this video with no plan, so thank you for watching. Again, thank you guys so much for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Have you read any of these? Tell me what you think about Red Rising, or Shadow and Bone, or Dune, or Emily Henry, or Abby Jimenez. And don't forget to find me on Goodreads so I can see what you're reading, and I'll see y'all next time.